Hey everyone, welcome to Locker Room. This is Southland's podcast for men, where we redeem men's conversations, talk about the right things in the right ways. Let's get after it.
Man, you did. Well, you nailed it.
I'm
Good
telling
job.
you. Well, it's right here in front of me, man.
With some energy and
My
everything.
name is Scott Hatfield, and we're flipping the script today. We get to turn it on a dude that's been in this spot forever. And I was just telling him how amazing he is in this role to really kind of drive the direction of all this. And if you don't know who it is we're talking about, we'll just intro him for you. Right? He is our teaching pastor, men's night speaker, creator of Locker Room Podcast.
Creator. I like that. JR needs some kind of credit over there.
Yeah, he does. He's been sitting in there dealing with all this for a long time. You know, he
is the second generation, though. We started with Nick, didn't we?
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right. I forgot about that. That's right.
Our own, Southland's own, got booted from maybe one high school and went to another, but finished.
Yeah.
Got done.
Booted from this very room, actually.
No way.
Oh, yeah. This was the lunchroom at the high school.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Oh, hey, man, how does it feel to be on that side today?
I like it. I'm really relaxed. I'm super relaxed.
But what's funny is I have notes here, and again, if you're just listening, you can't see it, but you'll just have a journal, and you'll have 4 bullet points, and that's it.
So, yeah.
It's ridiculous. I hate you. I hate you.
Hey, to each their own, man.
So listen, I'm a rookie. I'm gonna do my best. A lot of grace.
No pressure.
I'm gonna do what I can to make this happen. But anyway, we're gonna follow up from this past weekend, Sunday night, men's night.
What is today? I don't even know what today is. Today is Wednesday, Thursday.
Today's Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Been a
4
long
days
run.
ago.
Yeah. Been a lot of follow up. Been a lot of great things, and so wanted to just circle back, one, to encourage those guys who were there, and then two, to cast a little vision, or at least communicate some of the things that we did and talked about over this past weekend. And so at the jump, before we even get into that, I was just thinking about you, and the reality is it's been a stretch. Summer came and went. We are in the middle of budget season right now. I mean, I just had 5 budget meetings today.
I'm sorry.
It's ridiculous. But you're in the middle of that. You and John just finished a great series as we kicked off the fall, Leave It All on the Field, which led very nicely. I mean, only God could figure that piece out. But you're in elder nomination process right now. You guys are doing that.
You're really ruining my relaxed state that I was in.
Well, we've passed it. We're almost past some of it, but we had a key staff meeting in Danville.
Yeah, great staff.
Yesterday, 2 days ago, and you got kids back in school. You got a kid playing football who is unbelievable. You got one that you said goodbye to, even though it's not that far away.
She flew 4 miles down the road.
But that's a lot, man.
That is a
how
lot.
are you? How are you feeling? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm tired. For sure, I'm tired. Which is a little bit different because
it's good tired though.
It's an all in the field kind of tired for sure. It's not a negative tired.
Right.
But usually this time of year I'm a little more revved up going into the fall or getting ready for what'll be a busy season.
Sure.
Fall's just always a really busy season in church world, and it certainly is here at Southland. So it's a little strange that I'm in a place right now being just like, man, whew, been a lot. Even in the sermon I'm getting ready to preach on Sunday, I'm just kind of going through a few of the things that God has done in this place over the past couple of years, and it's really amazing. You know? So it is a good.
That's
it is
cool
a
to
good
be able
tired.
to do that and look back. Yeah. Well, and no one knows this. I mean, there's very few of us that were in this place as you were thinking about some of this stuff. Even Friday, we won't go into all those details, but just your family being attacked by some stuff and some things going on. It's crazy to think that just so happened that all those things happened at once, but yet, you knew exactly what it was, and you just locked in, and nothing kept you from preaching an amazing message Sunday night.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you for
that.
digging in and just locking in. But talk about men's night. So I guess what's interesting about this is that we think we're strategic about the next year and all of those type of things. We did not have this on the calendar. Did not have it in the budget.
No.
Did not RSVP for it.
Right.
We had 2 weeks, 3 Sundays of hey, this is what we're doing. Want you to be there. We're not going to record it, and this is for our men. And so why do that?
Yeah, and originally the idea was actually to wait until the day of to say, "Hey, man, tonight be there," and that be the very first time we ever mentioned it. That was my original idea, and that was that was based on something that I had done once. We had done once out in Colorado.
Yeah.
That was another very amazing moment. And so I've seen this tape before in a very good way, meaning I just know that men respond well to high challenge.
Yeah.
And I think I and John and our leadership and you, and I think we have some equity built up with our men and some trust. So I knew that if I stood on stage and said, hey, I promise you, we're not going to waste your time.
Yeah.
Like there'll be some fun and there'll be some food, we're not going to, but if you come, you will walk away going, I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I said that to men, they would trust me, which meant we better back that up.
Yeah,
we better back that up. And so that's where the pressure comes in. But man, it was amazing just seeing like, wow, God, you really did draw men here. They really did trust us. They really did sense that there's a moment that we're in right now that is weighty and it's crucial. And so when they heard us say, hey, for a couple weeks, make sure you're there, they responded, and so we had men lined up outside the door 30 minutes before the doors opened.
Crazy.
I mean, the event didn't technically
lines.
start till 7. We told them doors would open at 6 and there'd be some food.
Yeah.
And at 5:30, there were men there, which that's not normal, meaning
Correct.
we've had really well-attended men's events, but men roll in as it starts, a few minutes into it typically, and women are the ones who are typically lined up early. So when I got out there in the lobby,
that said something, didn't it?
Yeah, I was like, okay, something's about to happen here tonight. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, the food was almost gone. The lines were out the doors. What was left was like
the vegetarian Jimmy John's.
Jimmy John's. It's like, why? Who ordered these?
It was the bacon, lettuce, tomato without the bacon.
Yeah.
Who wants that?
Yeah, it's like, hey, if you're asking for vegetarian, you may be at the wrong conference,
That's right.
the wrong
That's
event.
Right. That's right.
But anyway, one question that I think, just because there are other churches and church leaders that listen and maybe follow or kind of chase what we do at times, why is this so important to be intentional, to have strategic things for men? There's plenty of things that you can be doing. It's easy to get really, really busy, but why the focus on some things along the way? It even happens in our preaching. You're always preaching a lot where you'll say something specifically too. But why is that important to the church? As they're thinking about their next year and what their budget stuff too, they may be in stuff like this where they go, we probably need to figure that out. Why is that important?
As men go, so their families go.
Yeah.
As men go, so the church goes.
Yeah.
And we could spend all day arguing about whether that you want that to be the case.
Yeah.
It is the case, So one of the things I've always said about men in marriage is the question is not whether a man is called to lead in his marriage. I don't think that's a question you can really debate. People do. It's just what kind. Are you a good leader or a bad leader? But one way or the other, you're leading your family. Now, you may be leading them poorly, maybe leading them away from Jesus. You may be leading them in a destructive manner, but make no mistake, the tone of your home has a lot to do with your heart.
Yeah.
The tone of our church has a lot to do with the hearts of the men in it, And so you can neglect men's hearts to your detriment.
Yeah.
That's true in marriage and in the home. It's true in the church. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of churches have done that. Like a lot of churches have settled for saying, we'll continue to allow this to be a place that men get drugged to by their wives and moms, and we'll just let women do most of the work in the church. And that's not the way God designed it to be. It was designed to be something that men and women did in tandem with one another, playing specific roles. And it's all too easy. This is the great sin of men, is to abdicate their responsibility and to sit back and be passive. And so if you don't invest in the lives and the hearts of the men in your church and in the families in your church, you're going to pay for it.
To your peril.
To your peril.
Yeah. It was cool to hear women too the last couple of weeks, some wives and moms. You probably heard that as well, just praying for this event, excited about this event, encouraging their husband, their boyfriend to be there, that type of thing. And it's cool that they don't look at that as, hey, I'm being slighted, but they see this and they thank God for the women in our church,
Absolutely.
the women on staff, the women that serve, the volunteers that are in so many different areas. We have some great staff members, and we have 5 campuses that are full of women that just pour it out. They're there early, just like you said with the women's conference. It's crazy. I mean, I think our men's conference that we had last time, what did we have, 900 Is
I
that
don't
what it
even
was?
know. Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's what it was. And of course, we had almost 2,000 at this event, which is crazy. But when we do women's conferences, they just come to
They sell out.
They just come to the party quick. You got to get them. I mean, it's unbelievable. But thank God that our women see this and recognize the need and see the importance of how that impacts their family, their marriage, our church, all of that. So,
what Christian woman would balk at, I don't really want my husband, my brother, my son to go to church on a Sunday night and be challenged to be more like Jesus.
Right.
What are they doing over there? No, strong women are sitting back going, please,
Yes.
go, and that just makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah. Don't want to re-preach your message, but that
Neither do I. Not right now.
and I brought lots of things so that way you don't have to remember them all.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of great things in this message, and I know that we're not going to, give this out to everybody.
Sure.
But there are some things I want to highlight just because I think it helps moves us toward those challenge points that we had for people that were there, and then also even for those who just weren't able to make it, that we want them to get on board too. But my question, I think, first was, you've talked to men, you've preached sermons around men, and I guess before you even dig out everything, but just you had a direction and you felt like the Lord was leading you toward that. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a sports metaphor, which will shock everybody, know. But the direction was you're either hurt or you're injured, and the thing I wanted to say to everybody, both were pretty much equal burdens on my heart. One is, in sports, we seem to understand the distinction. If you're hurt, you can play. Play hurt.
Everybody does.
And, Wayne Smith, who founded this church, gone are the days where you have these like annual sermons you just re-preach.
Yeah, right.
But
it'd be awesome if we did.
Right? Wayne would preach one around Super Bowl Sunday all the time called Playing Hurt. And it was a great sermon, and it's a true statement. You need to play hurt. And it does two things. It recognizes that everyone's hurt. Like, you're hurt, man. There's not a human among us that's not walking with a limp. Yeah. Of some kind, but you got to play. Yeah. Like, you can't use that as an excuse to say I'm out of the game.
Sure.
So one was to be a challenge to men to go, we're all hurt. We're all hurt in varying ways. We're all hurt in similar ways, but we still got to play, which means serve. Yeah. Serve within our church, serve within our community, serve children, serve students, serve our wives, serve, get in the game, play hurt. Yeah. And then the second reality, though, is sometimes you're injured. And in sports, if you're injured, you're going to hurt the team if you play. Yeah, right. So if you try to play and you get out there and you're so injured that you can't cover your man or whatever that is, the team suffers because you're out there. Right. So that doesn't mean you're off the team. It just means we got to get you patched up so you can get back in the game, so we can get you off the injured reserve list. And so the second huge burden I had was, I know there's a lot of men out there who are injured in various ways, to where if they were to get in the game with us right now, they would hurt us, because they're not in a place where they can. So if that's addiction, if that's secrets they're keeping, affairs, and I hate the word affair because they're committing adultery. It's a sin. Let's call it what it is. Yeah. There's all these things that are going on in men's lives, but they're pretending they're not injured, and they're not doing anything to address these wounds. Yes. And so I wanted to challenge them to speak up and to talk for maybe the first time to someone about what steps they can take to pursue healing. It's not going to happen overnight. Right. So that was the burden. That was the overarching burden I had and direction I had.
That's cool. You mentioned, and I'll probably go back to that just because I know that I want you to touch on the specific challenges as far as getting into the game. There's some areas that you really highlighted that I think it's important for our men to know, and also for those men who weren't there, that, hey, this challenge is still for you. But you mentioned some statistics at the very beginning, and I won't give them all of them, but you mentioned boys ages 15 to 19 are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than girls. Men who are between the ages of 20 and 24 are 5 to 6 times more likely to commit suicide than women. The prison population has increased by more than 700% since 1973, and 93% of those people in prison are men. And then you said boys are 3 times more likely to be expelled from school, which we're 2 people at the table. God is good. Boys are further behind academically, not proficient in schools. And you talk about these being symptoms of a root problem that are showing themselves up in boys, teenagers, young adults, and men. Here's the question. Can you talk about why you think these things happen, or why they're happening, and what you think Satan's, just what his game plan in all this is? I mean, those are two big kind of scenarios, but you can run wherever you want to run there.
Yeah, a lot of those stats I pulled from a book that would really benefit people to read. It's called The Boy Crisis, and I'm trying to remember the authors' names. There's two of them, but anyway, that book was published a few years ago, and it's really not, if I'm honest, it's not super solid on the solution side of things.
Correct.
It's mostly good on the diagnostic side of things.
Yeah.
So it'll tell you, here's all the things that are wrong, and here's how and why maybe some of those things occurred. A little bit of it, especially when it comes to like education and things like that, is a reaction to the fact that girls were behind in some things. So like even in the stats I gave for college degree, like in one generation, 61% of college degrees were being given to boys, and it was 39% girls. In one generation, it's totally almost precisely flipped. So it's like we have this tendency to overcorrect as we course correct. So it's like, hey, girls are behind, so let's just ignore boys. That doesn't solve the problem. It just changes the problems that we have. And so that's one reason. The other is, I think, it's literally like if I'm Satan, and I always try to think this way, like if I were the enemy, what would I do? You know, well, I did children's ministry for a long time, and I know that if I have 3 boys in a group of 12 kids, and I want to sit down and teach them the Bible, those 3 boys can ruin the experience for the whole 12. They can take the whole room. And totally shift the focus, the direction, distraction. They can blow up the whole room.
And girls can do that too.
Girls can do it.
There's something about
it's different.
That. It just is. And our culture continues to say, no, we're the same. And it's like, we're not, but keep going.
And so you, and again, it's one of those things where you can sit there and go, well, I wish that weren't the case, and how do we make that not the case? Or you can go, or I can try to engage the hearts and minds of the boys, and in so doing, I'll also get the hearts and minds of the 9 good math I just did girls, so that all 12 now are getting to hear about Jesus. And so you knew that when you did student ministries. I knew that when I did student ministries. Like if I don't engage these junior and senior young men in the room, then I'm going to lose the whole room. So I think that Satan has said, like, hey, if I can stir up and wound and injure and harm, the hearts of lie, deceive, cheat, steal from these boys, that will have a downstream effect on the girls whose lives they will impact. Because boys are stronger than girls. And when I say stronger, I mean physically. So again, we can argue about that, and you'd be wrong. So again, what do I want to do then? I want to create young men who are going to use their strength for provision and protection of the young women that are in their orbit. I don't want them to use it to the detriment of the young women that are in their orbit. And so you asked, why is all that happening? I think because I could give a million reasons, one of which is our culture has come to see masculinity as the problem. And masculinity is not the problem. I don't like the word toxic masculinity. I like counterfeit masculinity. So counterfeit masculinity is a problem, So if it's a frat boy culture of let's see how many notches I can get on my belt, how many women I can sleep with, how much alcohol I can drink, and how many fistfights I can win. That's not masculinity. That's stupidity and sin. Totally. But that's not gendered. So I just think we're very confused. And so in marriage, there's it's kind of like we said earlier, there's no Christian woman who would say, I don't want to follow and love a man who is every day becoming more like Jesus. I've yet to find that woman.
Me too.
So if that's the proposition, we want to see men become more like Jesus. Guess who benefits from that? Not just the men.
Everybody.
Everybody does. So Satan knows the same thing. So if I can do all these detrimental things to men, then guess who else suffers? Everybody.
This is a side thing for me that it's funny because I have the same heart that you have for men. And as you're walking through these statistics, there was a moment, and it wasn't a stat, but it was a statement that you made that it kind of made me pause, and I think I probably missed the next 45 seconds of whatever you said. But you were talking about the school shooting epidemic.
Yeah.
And you said, I'm not surprised at the next one that happens.
Unfortunately.
I'm really not surprised because it happens so much. We're inundated with this all the time. There could be one today. But you said, you know what would shock us is if that school shooter was a female. And it made me pause. And I don't know what you said after that, but just talk for a second about that. Just why that's such a profound thing. I don't know why that is, but it's just true.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many school shootings we've had. I've never heard that, not one time. Do you imagine? I mean, and it doesn't mean that it won't happen.
It might, but the point is we'd all be shocked.
We would be shocked.
We'd be shocked because we can't name a time that it has, and maybe it has and it just didn't make the news. I doubt it, but why is that the case? I think because anger has a way of manifesting itself in a man's life and in a boy's life that it doesn't necessarily manifest itself in a girl's life, in a boy's life. It's the same reason that the prison population's risen by 700% and 93% are men.
Yeah.
Men by a way disproportionate margin commit more violent acts than women, period. That's just true, So when it comes to the school shooter mentality, it usually comes down to very often they are unfathered boys. Yeah. Sometimes there's a father in their life, but most of the time not. And so you have two ingredients that are usually common. They're no dad and they're angry.
Yeah.
And so their way of taking out their anger on the world is this act of violence that's going to make other people feel the pain that they feel on a daily basis. That's typically the goal. Yeah. The Columbine kids, wrote a lot. And so we actually have the ability, it's dark and scary, but to get inside their minds and hearts to see what they wrote about. And I want to see the world in pain, and this is the best solution I have and the most pain I can cause. Yeah. So it's built out of resentment. It's built out of
loneliness,
a lot of loneliness, and isolation is huge. And I've watched this pattern, having lived in Colorado not long after Columbine. The scars of that the wounds of that were still open. Yeah. Then we have the theater shooting in Aurora while we're there during the Batman movie. Yeah. So that kind of thing, unfortunately, was something that was ever present in our consciousness out there. Right. And you could see, it was interesting when I moved out there. This is kind of a tangent, but it's really relevant. I had been doing student ministries here.
Yeah. Right.
And I'd noticed two things. One is, as I left, I noticed there was a difference between the juniors and seniors that I was leaving behind and the incoming freshmen that were coming in. And the thing that I noticed was the
juniors and seniors here?
Well, just here. Okay. So even just in Lexington, I noticed, hey, these freshmen that are coming in are very different from these seniors that are leaving. Yeah. And it wasn't just your typical maturity level and blah, blah, blah. It was, and the word I used was, these kids are angrier. Yeah. These kids that are coming into ninth grade are angrier than the kids that I'm seeing graduate. Then I go to Colorado, and the brooding, dark, teenage angst out there was just on steroids. It was just a different thing altogether. Wow. And you probably saw similar things in Seattle.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. One of the people that I think you're going to hang out with in heaven besides your family is C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, if I can get some time with him, for sure.
You quote him a lot. He's meant a lot to you personally, to your ministry. You use a lot of his quotes. And you used a quote at Men's Night that I had not heard before, and probably is worth just maybe unpacking, because it fits with this whole cultural narrative that's happening, and its attack on godly manhood and masculinity. And I'll read the quote. That way you don't have to think about all that. But at first you said, we castrate and bid the geldings be fruitful. And then you used a broader version of that quote. In a ghastly sort of simplicity, we remove the organ and demand the function. Yeah. We make men without chest and expect of them virtue and enterprise. We laugh at honor and are shocked to find traitors in our midst. We castrate and bid the geldings be fruitful. You mind unpacking that, just as what he meant by that, and how you spoke about that, in in our time together.
You know, the command that we see in Ephesians 6:4, you know, is fathers, do not exasperate your children, but rather train them up in the discipline and admonition of the Lord.
Yeah.
That word exasperate means to force into a no-win situation, to back into a corner. Well, that's what we've done to our boys culturally. We've put them in a no-win situation where we're demanding something of them that we're not only not equipping them to accomplish that, we're actually stripping them of all the things that would help them become the thing we demand them become.
Yes.
So we want these boys to become honorable, to use C.S. Lewis's word honor.
Yeah.
We want them to become honorable. We want them to treat women with respect.
Yeah.
We want them to be honest. We want them to be hardworking. We want list the virtue.
Yeah.
And then what do?
Yeah.
We actively suppress all of the things that will create that. So C.S. Lewis's illustration is really vivid and raw, right? He's going, we castrate, we cut their balls off. That's what he's saying. This is a men's podcast.
Yeah.
We cut their balls off, and then we demand that they produce something.
Yeah.
They can't. You just cut their balls off.
Yeah.
So how do you expect that to happen?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what C.S. Lewis was saying in a very prophetic way.
You take the organ and the function.
Yeah, we still want you to become all of these things, but we're not going to help you get there. In fact, we're going to work against you. So why do we get a bunch of angry young men? Gee, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's good insight, man. Very, very cool. You'd mentioned this in your message, Leave It on the Field, All in the Field, and then you mentioned this also at Men's Night. You said these are urgent times.
Mm-hmm.
The urgency of the moment demands it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just 30 seconds. Why say that?
Yeah, because I'm sure a lot of other generations would say these are urgent times, and there's always urgent times, and there's always, the enemy's always been at work, and there's always things that we have to press against and fight against. I think what we've seen in the past couple years, in regards to, especially as we refer to kids and students, is that not only are they angry, but they're lost.
Yeah.
They're just absolutely lost, and we are going to run the risk of being probably the third to fourth generation that are really, really lost.
Yeah.
And so I think the urgency of the moment is that a lot of things are coming to a head culturally that haven't come to a head before, meaning there's been previous generations that have gone by with the trappings of a Christian culture, even though it really at its roots hasn't been Christian, but it still had some of the things that the previous generation's actual Christian culture afforded. So we can get all bent out of shape about, prayer, no prayer in schools or, all these different things. Those are just so far downstream of something that's of such greater importance.
Yeah.
And so I think now what's happened is we actually live in a culture that's increasingly hostile to Jesus, as opposed to just apathetic to Jesus.
Yes.
We live in a culture that's actually turning its sights on Jesus and his followers and going, we don't like you, and we would prefer you not be here. And as long as you're going to be here, be quiet.
Yeah. Don't bring up stuff.
Yeah, and submit.
Yeah.
And
celebrate what we're doing over here.
That's right. Not only
keep your mouth shut.
You can't just and also you have to affirm and celebrate and comply.
Not be tolerant.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's placing people at a real point where they can't just they got to pick teams, basically.
Yeah.
Like they got to go, am I following Jesus or am I not following Jesus? And so the urgency of the moment is we better start equipping young men, young women, everybody to be able to don't be passive. Yeah. Know who you're following and follow him and count the cost, So that's the urgency of the moment. I think things have come to a head and will increasingly come to a head in our culture.
Yeah. Used a word that night, ferocious.
Yeah.
Gave a definition of it, or just showed some words: savagely, fierce, extreme, intense. Yeah. And as you think about that, and I love that, and I think most dudes identify with that, but when you think about Jesus, you don't have to give 14 examples, but a couple of examples where you just see Jesus being fierce, or why that word resonates right now in your heart as it relates to leading men and challenging men and empowering men to go chase all this.
Yeah, I mean, goodness, one of his first public statements was reading in a a scroll, the Old Testament prophets talking about the Messiah, and he says, "This is fulfilled today in your midst, in your viewing." In other words, he's going, "I'm the guy."
Yeah.
And they wanted to kill him for it. I mean, his parents, his mom and brothers and sisters thought he was crazy. They tried to throw him off of a cliff. I mean, the dude said ferocious things, savage, intense things. Like, nobody made him do that.
Right.
He just unrolls the scroll and goes, "Yeah, I'm that dude." That's ferocious. An
enemy to all and a friend of sinners.
Right.
Rome hated him.
Right.
The religious right hated him.
Yeah, you get baptized by John, but then you go out in the desert and fast for 40 days and do battle with Satan.
The enemy.
It's ferocious.
Yeah.
You look at the woman caught in the act of adultery. You literally stand between a woman and an angry mob of people holding stones, ready to stone her. He uses his ferocity to protect her.
Yeah.
You look at the woman at the well and you go, he could have pandered to her, but instead he goes, "Hey, why don't you go get your husband?"
Yeah.
So he actually goes right at the most sensitive part of her life, not because he was trying to be cruel, because he was ferociously pursuing her heart. Turn over the tables in the temple. I mean, right on down the list.
Fighting for what's right, regardless of what it took.
Right, to go onto the cross. Ferocious, fierce, savage, intense. Jesus was all of those things.
Yeah. With this, it's funny because I think some men could easily go, "Yes, absolutely. They're athletically minded. They had that in their history,
military background, or
all of that." But it's one of those things for every man, regardless of your personality, your temperament.
Right.
God's challenged us to be ferocious, and in some ways, like, give a couple practical ways as that falls out in our lives, regardless of what type of personality you have or whether you played football or you boxed or whatever. What does that mean practically in a man's life today?
Yeah, it's one of my great fears is that people think that I'm referring to the decorum
of it.
of it. Like, I'm not saying you got to go out there and punch people in the face. I'm not saying you got to like to watch boxing. I'm not saying you got to know how to work on a car. Lord knows I don't know how to.
I don't either.
It's not what neither do you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you look at two things: provision and protection. As your responsibility. And that shows up consistently and constantly in quiet ways. And if necessary, loud ways.
That's right.
So it doesn't matter if you have a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Right.
All I know is if you're walking down the street with your wife and somebody tries to physically assault her, you get between her and you die if you need to.
If you got to take a beating,
you die.
Or you lose.
You die. Yeah. But you die protecting her.
But she's not your human shield.
No, you don't hide behind her.
No.
Because
No.
We're to demonstrate Jesus' love for the church. What did Jesus do? He laid down himself on our behalf, and that's our role as men, is to emulate him as we lay down our lives in provision and protection for others, especially our wives and especially our children. So practically, how does that show up? There's that illustration, but there's also getting between your wife and anyone or anything that is trying to hurt her or harm her. That may mean that there's somebody in your family, somebody in your life that you have to look and go, "Hey, from this point on, your conversation's with me, it's not with her."
Yeah, that's right.
I've seen enough. Like, you're hurting my wife, you're harming her, and so I'm gonna tell you you're not gonna get to talk to her anymore. You're gonna talk to me for a little while. That may be one of your own kids. It literally may be, "Hey, you don't talk to my wife that way. Come over here and look me in the eyeballs and talk to me that way." That's practical. That may mean for your kids. And,
protection.
I've maybe talked about this before. It's happened multiple times in my life. It has in yours too, where I've had to advocate on behalf of my kids, where we get lulled into this sleep sometimes, thinking that it's other people's responsibility to look after the needs of our kids. And what other people can do is be advisors.
Sure.
But the responsibility falls on your shoulders.
Right.
So years ago, when Eli was going into kindergarten, he had speech issues, and he was doing speech therapy, and we had some people who were telling us in the school system that the best solution was for him as a 5-year-old to be bused 35 minutes north to a school where he wouldn't know anybody.
Sure.
And he was also going to be in a class that was for kids with behavior disorders and all kinds of different things.
Everybody's lumped in.
And I just I just looked at the counselor, whoever it was, who was telling us this, and I said, well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's a no.
That's a no. And she went, well, you could take some time to think. I went, no, we don't. We don't need any time to think about it. The answer is no. That's not going to happen. So let's talk about other options that are on the table. Because he's going to go to this school that's a block from my house. Yeah. And she looked at me like, well, you're not allowed to do that. Like, well, we can. Yeah. We'll find out.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I'll tell you where he won't be. He's on that bus going to, Loveland or wherever it was. So there's many practical ways, but I think the filter always has to come back to, okay, the essence of manhood is responsibility. I have a God-given responsibility to provide for and protect those that he's entrusted me with. Yeah. That's, if you're single, there are people that God has entrusted you with, that he's put in your orbit that you can provide for and protect. Yeah. If you're married, if you have kids, it's really clear. If you're a boss, if you have people who are under your purview as a supervisor.
Your friends, people in your community group, on and on. Yeah.
Provide, protect, you know.
That's good. At one point, you pivoted, and I think this was, it's funny because the follow-up that our staff have had since Sunday, there were some people that needed to hear that God loves them. Yeah. And it's crazy because we say this all the time. Yeah. We really do. Yeah. And in talking about this, you talked about God's love for God's Son. Mm-hmm. And you talked about the Father and how much he cares about the Son. And you shared the passage from Matthew 3:16 and 17 where Jesus is baptized and it says, "This is my Son, whom I love, with whom I'm well pleased." And talk about that for a second. Just why is that so important to us? I mean, it was so important to Jesus, but why is it so important for us to say that, for men to know and experience that, to be anchored in that? Talk about why that's so huge.
Yeah, man. The blessing of the Father is the heart cry of every son. Yeah. It's the heart cry of every son. We all want to hear those words. This is my son. Yeah. My Father's not ashamed to claim me as his own. Because of the flip side of that is what many of us have heard. I'm ashamed of you. You're no longer my son. I don't, I mean, men have had horrible things said to
not
them.
There.
Yeah. Whom I love, and I'm well pleased. It's not only that I love you, but I actually delight over you with singing, as Scripture tells us that God the Father does for all of us, So we're all born in this way that we look toward our earthly fathers to get a picture of what the heavenly Father is like. Yeah. And the problem with that is it's high risk, high reward. Yeah. If you have no father, that tells you that means a young boy is going to think, man, God's not even there. He's not there for me. He's absentee father. Sure. If you have a brutal father, that may be the picture you develop of God. If you have a passive father, you develop that, all the things. But if you have a great dad, if you have a phenomenal dad, a provision protecting man with integrity, he won't be perfect, but boy, that's going to really help. It's going to really boost your perspective on who the Father really is. And so that's not new news, but one thing I've learned over these years is that sometimes men need to hear something they've heard a million times again in a new context. Yeah. So I think being in the room, there's no wives, there's no kids, there's no distractions. Right. It's just dudes, and we're not going to play patty cake tonight. Right. Look me in my eye. Yeah. God still loves you. Yeah. He's pleased with you.
He knows everything about you.
And he loves you still.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's powerful. We can never be reminded of that enough. I need to be reminded of that all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure we took that opportunity to do that, especially as we steered into, men that are injured, Yeah,
totally. You mentioned something about Fight Club and
it was cool, man, because and I heard there was more of a response in Parkside where we had to put men in another room because we didn't have enough room, and so we put a lot of our leaders and people like that in there. But in both rooms, there were men who were hooting and hollering, like at the mention of Fight Club.
Yeah, and I only wanted to say thank you because it's been an unbelievable joy to get to do this, and I'm excited about what God's going to do. And again, for those who weren't there, Georgetown will have Fight Club this fall. Good. And then Lexington campus will have it as well. Yep. We start September 19th, and so if you're interested, you can go to the groups page and figure that out. But there are plenty of solid groups at every campus, and so quickly, why is that so important for guys? Because there's so many guys that are so fearful of that. We think it's going to be weird. I'm going to get stuck here. I'm going to be in this forever. We're going to have to do something stupid, or whatever. But just talk about quickly just the importance of accountability, encouragement, knowing that people who have your heart, all of that.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is just knowing you're not alone, you know. And that's one of the benefits of doing these men's events and having men's groups and things like that is one of the biggest lies that Satan tells us is that you're the only one. Yeah. And it's a flat out lie, you know. Yeah. And so groups help remind us that. I mean, specifically with Fight Club, man, one of the things that you address is this father wound issue, which is so profound. And it's one of 13 things you address in there, but it may be the most maybe the most important one. It's definitely one of the most pressing ones. Yeah. And so I think it's really important, especially in our culture, to get in groups that emulate what we did on Sunday night. Yeah. What did we do? Well, we didn't play patty cake. Yeah. There was no gimmicks. It was real. It was real and raw. Yeah. We didn't want to waste anybody's time. Well, don't get in a group that does all those things. Like, quit wasting time. I'm not saying you need to just, jump into the deep end of, the second you hit the door. Sometimes that's true. Sure. Laugh. Like my group that I lead started this morning up again. Man, we laugh a lot. Yeah. There's so much laughing and teasing that goes on. And you talk about something that's beneficial for my soul, just being able to laugh, especially when I'm tired, Right. So it was great to get together with those guys and laugh. Yeah. Who doesn't want that in their life? Right. When we get a few minutes in the office and we get to just laugh, man, it makes my day. It makes John's day. Maybe more than any of us. It makes John's day. He loves it. So that's one of the, many reasons to get in one of these groups. But if I had to say, hey, make sure you prioritize, go get in Fight Club, man, because you're going to get both of those things. You get to laugh, you're going to get to meet some people, but you're also going to get really real really quick, and that's important to do because you have really real problems that are pressing on you every day.
Totally. I'm going to Richmond in February 2023. Yeah. So that way I will have made it to every place. We're going to try to eventually get this at every campus.
Yeah, we've done Fight Club at Danville too already,
we did,
right?
Yeah, it was 50 some odd guys. Right. Out of the guys that were a part of that care team, they were all Fight Club dudes. Yeah. It was awesome, and God's just doing some cool stuff in our men, regardless of Fight Club. But
my buddy Vinny, who I mentioned in that sermon, I'll confess I broke the rule that we weren't going to record it and distribute it, but because I used him as such a prevalent illustration in that, and he's my friend, and I reserve the right to do what I want to do. Sure. I let him listen to it, and he was like, he texted me this morning. He's like, "What's this Fight Club thing?" I was like,
"I'd love to have Vinny come." Man.
Oh well, we might have to figure that out.
Yeah, or maybe we get this stuff to him. It's cool. Yeah. I realized this as I was looking through some of the stuff. You started Locker Room January 8th, 2018, and Vinny was one of those guys.
Yeah, one of the first guests I had.
So it's cool to think about. It's like you've got plenty of friends. It's like I got plenty of friends too, and it's cool how God drops situations along the way in our lives where we could easily go, "Hey, I got a stable of friends. I'm just ministering to people, and I've got my buddies. It's fine." But how some guy like this would just show up in your life, and he would be so significant, regardless of where you live and where you serve, and that's just it's a cool thing. And I'm glad you brought him up and all of that. But let's bring her down. Challenged men. You talked about 3 areas, 4 areas, kind of specifically. You talked about mentoring children's students, young adults. Yep. Why those things? Just quickly, because I want to land the plane. This is longer than your normal ones. So.
No, that's fine, man. I could, we could do this all day.
And by the way, you brought that up about recording that. We're going to get hit like crazy. There are guys going to be going, "Hey,
I need that too.
Give it to me, man." Anyway. So
if you can beat Vinny in a fight, I'll let you have it.
There you go.
How about that?
That's right.
How about that?
They'll go away now.
Yeah, that's right. What's funny is there'd be 5 dudes that would go, "I think I could do it." Yeah. Yeah. I've been places with him where dudes come up and try to mess with him, and I'm amazed. Yeah. Amazed. Yeah. Like what? How dumb do you have to be? It's fascinating. But
I was working out last night, and I was listening to Rogan, and it was an old interview with Justin Gaethje. He talked about fighting Vinny.
Yeah, sparring. Yeah. Gaethje was a part of that whole crew. The funny thing about Gaethje, and we can do this. So
sorry.
No, it's great. Funny thing about Gaethje, because there's enough guys that listen to this that like the UFC and everything. When he was coming up in PFL and all that, and I think it was PFL. But anyway, he would be at local shows in Denver fairly often, and he can't see hardly at all. He's got these big, thick glasses he wears and things like that. But as wild as he is in the cage, that dude's calm.
Yeah.
He walks backstage and he just laughs. And I saw a dude try to mess with him one time backstage, and he just laughed in this guy's face and turned and walked away. You're like, dude, you could kill that guy right here. You're a savage.
It's like a fly.
Yeah.
Like, just leave me alone.
Yeah. So why did I pick those? My heartbeat has always been in ministry and continues to be, and I think will be to the day I die, young people, man. Yeah. And so Jim and I out in Colorado used to laugh about how we were just doing youth ministry for grown-ups, and that's what we do here too. And so, but then there's actual youth ministry, and so children, and I was at a local school today, a middle school in our city, and there's just a need. I mean, there's hundreds in one school alone, thousands across Lexington, thousands across Scott County, thousands across Madison County, Boyle County.
Kids without dads.
Yeah, kids that need just somebody. You can't be their dad, but you know what you can be? Someone who shows up.
Yeah.
And some of them have never had that. Someone who consistently shows up. So mentoring in our schools. And what blows my mind is as crazy as we can think our school systems have gotten, and in many ways they have, and they still recognize the need to have men and come into their schools to be with these boys, and women to come in and be with these girls.
Sure.
So they will roll out the red carpet to facilitate you coming in to spend 20 to 30 minutes with a young man, or so it always impresses me that they're glad I'm there. They never like, ugh, this guy showed up again. They are like, man, thank you.
I think there's so much stigma too around being a mentor, and it was funny because you said, you know what I do? Play Jenga.
Yeah, we show up
and I sit and talk.
Yeah,
this is a long game for you.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to love this guy, love his family. And
Yeah, he forgot his Chromebook today. So we're walking down the hall going, come on, man, remember your Chromebook. Now we got to go over here to the window of shame, and you got to check out a Chrome. He was complaining about the stickers on it. Like, you know what you don't have to complain about is when you have your own Chromebook.
Yeah.
But little things like that matter.
You said something as a children's pastor in the past, that women in the room, and again, thank God for women, but there's something about it when a guy shows up in children's ministry,
changes the room.
Yeah,
and women will tell you that.
Yeah,
they'll tell you when a man walks into the room changes. Yeah, especially with the boys in the room, and not only with the boys in the room, but especially with the boys in the room.
Yeah, students and young adults the same. I mean, same impact. This is the season. This is the time of their lives where, if you don't get this right, or you get off the path too far, you may blink and you're decades later and you're stuck, you're addicted, you're depressed, and so it is such a crucial time in someone's life. That's why I think that's probably why your challenge was so significant. Not just because we have needs,
right,
but because this is the need.
It is the need.
If we want to build men, we want to make an impact.
Look, this is our church. It's not my church, not John's church, not your church, not the elders' church. It's our church.
Yeah.
So, I didn't want people to think, oh, this is just a recruiting thing.
Yeah.
No, it's not just a recruiting thing. This is the need, and we actually have a mechanism called the church that we've been given to meet the need.
Yeah.
But it requires you to get in the game.
Absolutely.
So, I think that's the thing that I think and hope, based on the conversations I've heard, came through pretty loud and clear for everybody.
Your last challenge was just if you're injured, and you rattled off a lot of things. And I was real appreciative of that too, because I think sometimes people go, I'm not injured. It's like men that are injured can't even acknowledge that they are. And I think that's why this step was so crucial for them to actually take a step and go talk to somebody was huge, and you just kind of rattled off. You defined what injured is and said, hey, if that's you, I mean, basically going, you want to stay sick, or do you want to be well?
That's right.
And so here's what we have for you. And we had some space in our service for them to go do that, and knowing that God will continue to work on people, and some came afterwards. But we were ready for them. I mean, plenty ready, and guys just came in droves. And we as a staff followed up on every one of those specific personal one-on-ones that happened, because we wanted to make sure that we answered the right questions for them, or helped them take another step, or even said, hey, is there anything else that we can do for you? Or, hey, let me bring a little bit more clarity. I know yesterday was, because they're walking into a situation right after it's over. And, I mean, they got hit by a dump truck of truth and grace, and they were challenged to do something. And they were all they had to do was take one big obedient step.
Right.
And to see how God would show up in the midst of that. And so that's what we've done. But I didn't know what the outpouring would be. And that we've talked about the evolution of kind of what that back half and how we would help them, what that would look like. And so I just went, should we have 10 people for each? I'm like, and then I started my mind going, if we have 1,500
percentages,
it's like, how many are messed up? A lot.
Yeah.
How many will get up?
Yeah.
Less.
Yeah.
But let's be ready for them. Let's trust the Holy Spirit to do the work. And beyond even the conversations that happen officially in these care teams, the cool thing for me was to see that lobby at the Lexington campus. It just stayed full.
Yeah.
I mean, there was people that left.
Yeah.
But, man, the people just hung around. It just showed that, they're hungry for it. And there was something about just being with other men that see eye to eye or trying to maybe chase the right things or going, hey, I need that was so crucial. And, I mean, buddy, I think I made 25 calls on Monday and made even until about almost 10 o'clock Monday night.
Yeah.
And to hear guys that were, I mean, one guy in particular, man, he came over and he's in the car and he's going, I don't even think I know you, God, and I want to know you, and I don't know what that looks like. I want to be a better man. He's in recovery right now. But I don't even know a godly man to help me do that, and so everything I try, I just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and all I do is end up in the same bad places. And so would you show up tonight? Would you reveal to me what that looks like? And I mean, just story after story, buddy. I mean, some painful stuff that not just what I heard, but what other guys have heard. And for them to come out of the darkness into saying, hey, listen, I got 4 sons and this is going on. Or I've been in a marriage where I've been lying. Whatever those things are that are so burdensome,
heavy.
And in some ways it can be the worst day of your life. But in some ways, it's going, man. This might be the defining moment. We might look back and see the rumblings of what happened on August 28th that might just really impact our church for a really long time. So I don't know that I had a question for you, but you mentioned a highlight, and we're about 2 questions away. You mentioned a highlight of that night. At staff meeting, triggering you? Does it trigger you?
No. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. When you use the word triggered, I go a different direction.
Yeah, sorry,
but I don't like that word.
And there are probably other highlights. But just what you said to our staff, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I prayed. And,
they saw us. It's like not everybody watched. I don't watch.
And then walked off stage, and our band was leading a song called "The Blessing," which is just a prayer over our men and all that kind of thing. And
great song.
I said something in my sermon about, hey, some of you you've never surrendered your life to Jesus, and we got a big old baptistry over there. Yeah. Today can be the day that you surrender your life and are baptized. And I get back into a side stage area where we've got some TV screens so I can see what's still going on out there, and look up, and all of a sudden, John Sampson, one of our staff guys, is in the baptistry with a man. Yeah, he's the newest one on staff, and he's baptizing a man. Yeah. And it's like, man, if all of heaven stops and applauds
all
and
the
throws
effort,
a party,
all the energy,
for that one man in that baptistry, then that just tells me, and John said it so well, all the effort was worth it for just that one man to surrender his life to Christ, because we'll all get to be with him in heaven now. So that was profound. I heard there was another man that was baptized after that I didn't even know about, that kind of thing. So if you would have said, on the front end, hey, here's the way your week will play out. Here's all the blood, sweat, and tears that'll have to go into it for hundreds and hundreds of people. Yeah. We'll have to open up a building when we don't normally open up a building, all this kind of thing. Yeah. And the end will be this man gets to be in heaven with us. Yeah. Sign me up.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Our staff were incredible. Our volunteers were incredible that night. So much energy, effort. We do things really, really well. We don't do it perfectly, and I'm sure that there's some learns, but man, this was a powerful night. And buddy, I can't thank you enough for your thoughts about this, the vision behind it, to go, even though we didn't have it planned, and how God just dropped something right then, even in the midst of our calendar after this series. I mean, it's funny. Only God.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing I'd want people to know about our staff, is guys like me, guys like John, we get a lot of, we take a lot of the bullets, but we also get a lot of the pats on the back, and I don't know that people fully understand what it's like, for our staff to pivot when you're in a big organization. And so one of the benefits of being big is you can do big things, but also usually one of the downsides is it's hard to turn a big boat, but this place has stayed healthy in such a way that we were able, I didn't get anybody who balked at this idea.
Yeah.
Everybody on staff just, once they saw the vision for it, just went, we'll jump in. Nobody said that's not my job description. Sure. That wasn't even a thought. And so our staff is really servant leaders, who just got into ministry because they wanted to see people get in the baptistry. Yeah. And so I was just really, really thankful for all of you guys, that did. I had to write a sermon. Everybody else had to do all kinds of stuff.
I kept putting more stuff on care. Recently it's like, hey, just get 10 guys a piece. And it's like, hey, we're going to have a connect card. We're going to have these resources. And hey, what do you think? And so we just kept going. We're going to have this meeting. Now we're going to have these flags. We're going to have, all these areas. And it was like, they just went, let's do this. Glad submission or glad service, all of those things. I thought that was pretty awesome. So anyway, any other final thoughts from men's night? Anything you want to say to just dudes that weren't able to be there?
Yeah, if you weren't able to be, if you weren't able to be there, you're not getting it. But you did get a Cliff's Notes in this, which is fine, And I would just encourage you, if you didn't get to attend, that doesn't mean you shouldn't respond to some of these challenges. You just heard what we just said, so the challenge is out in front of you too, and so respond. We need you. Your family needs you. This church needs you. This community needs you. So jump in. Yeah. And then the other thing I would say to men who are out there, they were at the event and they have responded, is don't ride a wave of emotion. Yeah. Meaning, if there's a glitch in the system and you signed up to mentor at the school and you hit some kind of road bump or something like that, don't be discouraged by that. Yeah. Guess who's wanting to do that? Yeah. The enemy. Yeah. So just call it what it is and acknowledge it and keep moving forward. Yeah. So if you get into, you volunteer to serve in children's ministry, you're like, this ain't fun. Okay. Yeah. That's not what we asked. I didn't ask you if it was fun. I told you it was needed.
We didn't say this is Disneyland. Now this is ministry.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes it's about aligning your gifts with a need really well, and sometimes it's about there's a need regardless of your gifts.
It's on fire.
The house is on fire. I didn't ask if you were a fireman. I just told you to pick up the hose. So I would just say it's easy for us to allow the emotion of the moment to drive us to a place that won't sustain us when it gets hard. That's good. So just stay the course. Yeah.
If you weren't here, then man, you can go on our website and figure out ways to serve. If you have questions, you can fill out a questionnaire online. Someone will reach out to you, whether that's mentoring with local outreach or that's children, students, young adults. They're all those tabs are there. You can fill out that information, and people can certainly reach back out to you without any problems as it relates to care or that response of going, man, I'm injured and I'm hearing about this now, and it's going, that's me. I mean, we sent out something here, I guess maybe yesterday or the day before,
an email.
Yeah, and there have been guys that are continuing to respond. Good. And they weren't there, or they didn't, or maybe they were there and they just didn't. They didn't go and talk to somebody, and they're going, "Hey, man, I got this going on." Yeah, this is why we're here. We want to help you, man. We don't want you to be stuck. We want you to have the abundant life that God has for you, and it may mean that you've got to do some really hard heart work in order to do that, and maybe change some things or cut some things out of your life, but putting some new stuff in. And if you go, "Hey, I don't know how to do this," you know what? We're not perfect either, but there's some things that we can do to help you and put the right people around you and tools and spiritual disciplines that might just really change everything in your life. Yeah. So thanks for preaching your guts out the other day, dude.
Yeah, man.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Locker room coming up this next session.
Yeah,
anything you want to say about it?
Yeah, we're gonna start recording some more podcasts here shortly, and so usually once we get 3 or 4 recorded, we'll start releasing those episodes. And so we're gonna chase hard after manhood and fatherhood with a friend of mine that I've met who runs a ministry out of Louisville, and so you guys will enjoy him. But I'll say I'm kind of liking it on this side of the table, man. This is nice.
Hey, you mentioned a resource, the Boy Crisis. You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I went back to that. And then, hey, don't forget to share the Locker Room podcast with people, whether it's people in your, in your sphere, whether it's family members or friends or coworkers. We're here to help men, and regardless of whether they go to our church or not, that type of thing. And sometimes there are other churches that may not have an emphasis on this. And if we can encourage people, it's not about us being big. It's about Jesus getting glorified. And if we can get tools to people, we certainly want to do that. Men find encouragement, that type of thing. So that's it, man.
All right.
That was a little wobbly at first, but we got there.
No, you did good.
So here's the deal. We'll catch you next time on Locker Room.
Locker Room. See y'all.